flashbulbs flickered like lightning strikes over a stormy sea, each burst freezing a face mid-smile, mid-pose, mid-lie. Beneath the champagne sparkle and velvet gowns of Vogue World 2025, something darker brewed. A collision of grace and desperation, of royalty and rebellion. And at the heart of it all stood two women who couldn't have been more different. Nicole Kidman, the unshakable queen of Hollywood elegance, and Meghan Markle, the Duchess-turned-disruptor, fighting to be seen once again among those who had quietly exiled her. But this wasn't a film premiere. This was real life. And what happened next? A simple gesture of flowers, a quiet smirk, a trash bin, would send shockwaves across the world. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Tell me something. Have you ever seen someone so desperate to belong that they forgot how to be themselves? Have you ever watched a person mistake pity for forgiveness? Because that's exactly what happened that night when Meghan Markle tried to gatecrash one of the most exclusive events on the planet. The Vogue World Gala has never been just another red carpet show. It's a power summit in disguise, where fashion titans, A-listers, and whispered alliances decide who's in and who's forgotten. Every glance, every placement, every name on that guest list is a message written in diamonds and subtle revenge. And this year, for the first time, Meghan Markle's name wasn't on it. That omission, that invisible erasure, was the spark that set everything ablaze. Inside Meghan's Montecito mansion, preparations were already underway. The stylist, the PR advisor, the assistant, all working on a plan that had no official approval, no ticket, and no safety net. Meghan reportedly believed that if she showed up, the cameras would turn. They always did. And once again, she would outshine everyone in the room. After all, wasn't that what she'd been trained to do? Command attention, script her own comeback, and bend narratives in her favor? But there was a problem. Vogue had moved on. Since her last appearance, new faces had replaced her. New alliances had formed, and her royal connection had lost its shine. Anna Wintour, the high priestess of fashion power, was said to have grown cold toward Meghan's brand of drama. And Nicole Kidman, longtime Vogue favorite and face of unshakable class, was now being celebrated as the evening's embodiment of timeless grace. The symbolism was impossible to ignore. One woman represented longevity, the other controversy. Still, Meghan had a plan. If she couldn't get an invitation, she'd find another way in. Quietly, cleverly, indirectly. That's where the assistant came in. Imagine being that assistant. Young, loyal, nervous. Handed a bouquet of rare white orchids, chosen not just for their beauty but for their symbolism. Humility, purity, peace. Meghan's message was supposed to be disarming. A peace offering from one powerful woman to another. A bridge back into Hollywood's good graces. But beneath that bouquet lay something else entirely. A strategy. Meghan believed that if Nicole accepted the flowers in public, it would signal reconciliation. Headlines would read, "Kidman and Markle bury the hatchet." And just like that, Meghan would be back in Vogue's inner circle, if not by invitation, then by implication. Except that's not what happened. Because when the assistant arrived at the venue, trembling, clutching the orchids wrapped in tissue and ribbon, something shifted. Nicole Kidman turned her head just slightly, the kind of effortless gesture that can silence an entire room. She listened to the assistant's nervous explanation. Her pale blue eyes moved from the flowers to the face of the messenger. Then she smiled, that soft, inscrutable Nicole Kidman smile. And without a word, she walked over to the nearest silver trash bin and dropped the flowers inside. The cameras caught everything. The gasp that followed wasn't just from bystanders. It was from an entire industry watching one woman reclaim control from another. It wasn't cruel, it wasn't loud. It was deliberate. A silent boundary drawn in public view. Nicole's message was simple. Some invitations can't be bought. Some apologies come too late. By the time Meghan heard about it, the footage had already gone viral. Let's rewind a little. Earlier that day, Meghan's PR strategist had reportedly assured her the plan was foolproof. The assistant would deliver the flowers backstage, away from the main event, avoiding any scene. But Vogue World isn't like other red carpets. It's an ecosystem of eyes. Paparazzi, influencers, live streamers, all waiting for their next headline. Even the smallest act is magnified under that glare. Meghan knew it. So did Nicole. For Meghan, this was supposed to be an olive branch. For Nicole, it was a test of dignity. Now, think about it. Two women who built empires in entirely different ways. Nicole, decades of patience, artistry, and quiet control. Meghan, years of ambition, bold reinvention, and loud independence. Yet both accused by the media of being too much or too calculating. But only one of them learned how to play the long game. So why did this moment matter so much? Because in that single act, a bouquet dropped into a bin, Hollywood saw a symbolic dethroning. Nicole's calm defiance reminded everyone that power doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. And Meghan? She misread the room again. Rumor has it, she was on a video call when the clip surfaced online. The silence on her end was deafening. Those close to her say she looked stunned, then furious. The assistant, poor thing, was reportedly inconsolable, apologizing repeatedly as Meghan paced the floor. But Meghan's anger wasn't really about the flowers. It was about the message behind them, that she no longer held the influence she once wielded effortlessly. Inside Vogue's headquarters, the moment caused ripples. Some staff allegedly applauded Nicole for protecting the sanctity of the brand. Others worried it would reignite the Meghan problem, the PR chaos that seemed to follow her everywhere. Meanwhile, the internet split in two. Supporters called Nicole cold and elitist. Critics said she had simply enforced boundaries. And somewhere between those reactions lay the truth, that this was never just about two women, but about what happens when public image collides with private ego. It's easy to dismiss this as gossip. But look closer. There's a cultural undercurrent here. A story about belonging, validation, and what fame does to people who refuse to fade quietly. Meghan's attempt wasn't just an act of desperation. It was a plea to be remembered, to stay relevant in a world that moves on faster than a camera flash. And if you've ever been excluded, ignored, or replaced, you know that pain. That moment when the world seems to close a door you thought would always be open. That was Meghan's reality at Vogue World 2025. A door closed in her face, and a bin full of wilted orchids as proof. Still, the strangest part of this entire spectacle wasn't the rejection. It was how controlled it was. Nicole didn't rage. She didn't roll her eyes or storm off. She made it art, a masterclass in quiet retaliation. And that, ironically, made the humiliation hit harder. When footage of the incident aired across social platforms, something else became clear. Meghan had underestimated just how much her presence still polarizes people. Comments exploded. She never learns. This is bullying. Nicole's an icon. Poor Meghan. Every clip, every reaction added fuel to a story that refused to die down. But here's where things get truly fascinating. Because according to one witness, Meghan's assistant wasn't supposed to approach Nicole at all. The flowers were intended for Vogue's event coordinator, a symbolic gesture to the organization itself. Somewhere along the line, instructions got blurred, the wrong person was approached, and the entire situation spiraled into a red carpet disaster. Was it sabotage, miscommunication, or something more deliberate? No one knows for sure. But what everyone agrees on is this. Once Nicole dropped those flowers, she dropped the curtain on Meghan's latest act of self-reinvention. And yet, this wasn't the end. Not even close. Because behind the scenes, phone calls were made. Apologies drafted. Damage control strategies whispered in boardrooms. Meghan wasn't ready to surrender her spotlight, not after everything she had built. And in her mind, Nicole's public dismissal wasn't just an insult. It was a challenge. The night ended with Nicole gliding into her chauffeured car, unbothered, while Meghan reportedly called her assistant in tears, promising they'd fix this narrative by morning. But nothing about what was coming could be fixed. Not the way Meghan thought. You see, what she didn't realize was that this small act, this floral fallout, had already opened a Pandora's box inside Hollywood. Friendships would fracture. Allegiances would shift. Hidden truths would crawl into the light. And before long, even Vogue itself would be dragged into the storm. Because that moment on the red carpet wasn't random. It was the first domino in a much larger chain reaction. One that would pull in everyone from Anna Wintour to Meghan's own inner circle. So the question is, who really planned this? Who wanted Meghan humiliated that night? And why did Nicole react with such cold precision? As if she'd been waiting for that moment all along. Stay with me, because this story is about to twist in ways even Meghan couldn't have scripted. What's worse? Being forgotten, or being deliberately left out? That's the question Meghan Markle asked herself the moment she realized Vogue World 2025's glittering invitation list didn't include her name. At first, she thought it was a mistake. It had to be. She'd attended before. She'd been photographed. She'd been talked about, written about, analyzed from every camera angle. Surely Vogue hadn't just excluded her. Not after everything she had done for them, or at least that's how she saw it. But this year felt different. This year, Hollywood's elite had closed ranks. And behind that invisible velvet rope stood the one woman Meghan didn't expect to be at the center of it all. Nicole Kidman. The moment Vogue announced the theme, Timeless Icons, Meghan reportedly smiled to herself. "That's me," she told a close friend. "I'm timeless. I'm iconic." It sounded confident, maybe too confident. Because while she prepared to make her comeback, the invitations had already been sealed, sent, and circulated without her name on any of them. And that's where the story starts to turn. For years, Meghan had walked that thin line between admiration and controversy. Every public appearance was dissected, every word analyzed. And yet, she believed she still had the power to rewrite her narrative whenever she wanted. All it would take was one perfect red carpet return. One headline reading "Meghan stuns at Vogue World." One viral clip showing her arm in arm with Hollywood royalty again. But when the official guest list leaked on social media, the shock hit her like a cold wave. Nicole Kidman, Margot Robbie, Zendaya, Taylor Swift. Every major name in film, fashion, and fame, except Meghan Markle. Her team scrambled for answers. They called contacts, emailed Vogue representatives, even reached out to Anna Wintour's office. The responses were polite but firm. "We appreciate Ms. Markle's interest, but unfortunately, the guest list is finalized." Finalized. That one word echoed in her mind. To Meghan, finalized wasn't just a scheduling issue. It was rejection disguised as professionalism. In her eyes, Vogue had chosen to erase her. And in the brutal hierarchy of Hollywood relevance, being erased was worse than being hated. So what did she do? She decided to fight back quietly at first. Because if there's one thing Meghan had learned, it's that power isn't always in what you say. It's in what you appear to control. Over the next few days, those close to her said she grew increasingly restless. She started referencing Nicole Kidman's name in conversation more often. Subtly at first, then not so subtly. "Nicole and I have mutual respect," she claimed during a private phone call. But beneath the polished tone was a current of frustration. She wanted to prove she belonged in the same breath, the same category, the same spotlight. And that's when she made the first move. She would go whether invited or not. Now, imagine the scene inside her Montecito home that afternoon. Her assistant, we'll call her Clara, was sorting through wardrobe options, color swatches, and jewelry sets. Meghan, standing before a mirror, practiced her surprised yet humble expression, the one she used whenever she wanted to look both caught off guard and camera-ready. The room smelled faintly of roses and tension. "Do you think they'll stop me?" she asked. Clara hesitated. "Ma'am, it's an invite-only event." Meghan turned, the corners of her mouth tightening. "There's always a way in, Clara. Always." That sentence would come back to haunt them both. Meanwhile, across the country in New York, Vogue staff was finalizing the seating chart. Nicole Kidman had been chosen to open the evening segment, a symbolic nod to legacy and elegance. There were whispers that Anna Wintour herself wanted Nicole front and center because she represented everything Vogue aspired to reclaim: control, poise, and mystery. And maybe, just maybe, Nicole knew exactly what was happening behind the scenes. Insiders say Nicole had heard about Meghan's frustration. The calls, the emails, the quiet desperation. And though she never spoke publicly about it, her calm silence was more cutting than any comment. Because silence, especially in Hollywood, isn't emptiness. It's power. Meghan, however, interpreted that silence as snobbery. To her, it was a personal slight. And when her assistant timidly asked, "Should we just wait for next year?" Meghan reportedly laughed. A short, sharp laugh that filled the room. "There won't be a next year if they forget me now," she said. "We make our own doors, Clara." The phrase "make our own doors" became her rallying cry that week. But what she didn't realize was that the door she was about to open would lead straight into public humiliation. Let's pause for a moment. Have you ever seen someone so determined to prove a point that they couldn't see the disaster forming right in front of them? That's where Meghan was, staring so hard at the prize that she missed the trap. She told her team she wanted to extend an olive branch to Nicole Kidman. On paper, it sounded graceful, even noble. But in reality, it was a setup, a stage-managed moment meant to reclaim the spotlight. She would have her assistant deliver flowers to Nicole as a peace gesture, and the cameras would do the rest. The world would see reconciliation, not rejection. Or so she thought. The florist arrived the next morning with boxes of exotic orchids, lilies, and hydrangeas. Meghan spent nearly an hour arranging them herself, making sure the card, handwritten in her signature cursive, was visible enough for photos. The note read something along the lines of, "From one strong woman to another, with admiration and hope." Hope. The word hung in the air like perfume. But even the best perfume can't mask desperation. Clara tried one last time to intervene. "Ma'am, what if she doesn't react the way we expect?" Meghan waved her off. "Nicole's a professional. She'll play along." But that assumption that everyone else would play by her script was the first mistake. That same afternoon, Nicole Kidman was photographed leaving her hotel for a private pre-event fitting. She looked serene, untouchable, the kind of calm that only comes from knowing your place in the world is secure. No anxiety, no scrambling, no desperation, just quiet confidence. The photos went viral within hours, captioned, "Nicole Kidman, effortlessly commanding Vogue World energy." Meghan saw them, and for the first time that week, she didn't say a word. It's easy to forget that behind the headlines, Meghan was still a human being. One whose confidence was both her armor and her Achilles heel. She'd spent years fighting labels. Too ambitious, too loud, too emotional. And maybe, in some way, this plan wasn't just about getting into an event. Maybe it was about reclaiming control in a world that kept taking it from her. But control built on illusion can't last. The day before the event, Clara received a set of instructions. She was to attend the red carpet area under the guise of delivering a gift from a mutual acquaintance. She was to locate Nicole Kidman's assistant, hand over the flowers discreetly, and leave before anyone asked questions. Simple, efficient, untraceable. At least that was the plan. The next evening, the sky above New York shimmered with camera flashes. Vogue World 2025 was in full swing. Designers, models, and stars flooded the carpet in a parade of couture. Anna Wintour herself arrived in a sequined cape, her expression as unreadable as always. And then came Nicole Kidman. Radiant in silver, her presence magnetic, the kind that makes every camera instinctively turn. Back in Montecito, Meghan watched the livestream, her face half-lit by the screen. "She looks fine," she muttered, her tone clipped, emotion restrained. Clara's voice crackled through Meghan's phone. She was at the venue, orchids in hand, nervously scanning the crowd. "I'm supposed to find her assistant, right?" "Yes," Meghan replied. "Just her assistant. Don't go near Nicole herself." But fate, it seems, loves irony. Because as Clara tried to find Nicole's aid, the crowd shifted. A camera flash blinded her for a moment, and suddenly she found herself face to face with the star herself. Nicole Kidman, standing still, waiting, her expression unreadable. Clara froze. She didn't know what to do, so she did the only thing she could think of. She handed over the flowers. What happened next would soon dominate headlines, but at that moment, it was just two women and a bouquet of orchids. One trembling, one composed. Nicole took the flowers gently, glanced down, then up again. And then, as if the air itself had changed temperature, she turned and dropped them into the nearest bin. The photographers went wild. That moment, that image, became the symbol of the night. Nicole Kidman immaculate, unbothered. Meghan Markle absent but suddenly everywhere again for all the wrong reasons. And while the world debated who was right and who was wrong, one question lingered in the air like smoke after a fire. Did Vogue know this would happen? Because some say Nicole's gesture wasn't spontaneous. That it was planned, a quiet message to those who try to manipulate their way back into circles that have already moved on. Back in Montecito, Meghan's phone buzzed non-stop. Messages from friends, journalists, publicists. She scrolled through footage in disbelief, watching as Nicole's graceful hand let the orchids fall. The same orchids she'd handpicked herself. She didn't speak for a long time. Then, finally, she whispered. She knew. She knew exactly what this was. But how? Who told Nicole? Who warned her what was coming? Those questions would haunt Meghan in the days that followed. Because the answer, the real answer, would expose something deeper than a snub. It would reveal the quiet machinery of power that runs Hollywood's hidden politics. And by the time Meghan realized what she was truly up against, it would be too late to turn back. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that hums like static before a storm. The kind that creeps into your head when everything you've built begins to crack. That's what Meghan Markle felt in the hours after Nicole Kidman dropped those orchids into a trash bin. The silence was deafening. From Vogue, from friends, from Hollywood itself. Not one call. Not one invitation to explain. Just the digital echo of humiliation spreading across screens faster than wildfire. She stared at her phone for hours that night. The clip kept replaying. Nicole's calm face, the soft descent of white petals into the bin, the gasp from the photographers. Meghan knew she couldn't let that be the final image. Not her. Not the woman who once charmed a nation, who turned controversy into currency, who outwitted tabloids and courtiers alike. This couldn't be the end. It had to be the beginning of something else. Something bigger. Something controlled. That's when Operation Royal Redemption was born. It wasn't an official plan. There were no whiteboards or briefings. Just whispered calls, late-night meetings, and frantic texts between her small circle of loyalists. In Meghan's mind, this wasn't about revenge, it was about narrative. Control the story, and you control the perception. Lose it, and the world decides who you are for you. People love a comeback, she told her team. They love seeing someone rise after being kicked down. But this wasn't going to be a typical PR push. Meghan didn't want sympathy. She wanted power back. And she believed the only way to get it was to make the world see her as misunderstood, not manipulative. She wanted the sympathy of the public, and the silence of her rivals. So, she began to craft her own version of events. Within 24 hours, whispers began circulating online. Anonymous posts suggesting Nicole had overreacted, that the flowers were meant as a genuine peace gesture, that Meghan had been trying to support another woman. Her followers amplified it instantly. The story started to bend, but not break. Meghan was used to bending stories. It was her specialty. Still, she needed more than spin. She needed spectacle. Because if there's one thing Meghan understood about modern fame, it's that you can't beat silence with denial, you beat it with noise. She told her assistant Clara to start compiling a list of upcoming public events, galas, and premieres. Anything that screamed elite, elegant, exclusive. We'll show them we're still invited to the table, Meghan said. If they won't open the door, we'll walk through the wall. Clara hesitated. She had seen the fallout firsthand. She'd been the one standing on that red carpet when Nicole Kidman's hand released the bouquet. She could still hear the gasps, the mocking laughter of the crowd. Maybe we should lay low for a bit, she said carefully. Meghan's eyes darkened. Lay low? That's what they want me to do. That's how they erase you, by convincing you to disappear. Her voice trembled slightly, But it wasn't weakness. It was fury dressed as determination. She called her stylist next. "We're doing something bold," she said. "Something unforgettable." The stylist, a longtime friend who had weathered Meghan's storms before, hesitated before asking, "Do you want classic redemption or provocative reinvention?" Meghan paused. Both. In her mind, redemption wasn't enough. She wanted dominance. Meanwhile, across Los Angeles, publicists whispered about her in private dinners and power brunches. Some admired her audacity. Others shook their heads. "She doesn't understand," one veteran agent reportedly said. "Hollywood forgives, but it never forgets. You can't gatecrash grace." But Meghan wasn't listening to critics. She was building momentum. A few days later, her Montecito mansion turned into a makeshift command center. Laptops, lighting setups, camera crews. Everything was being arranged for what she called a message from the heart. It would look spontaneous, heartfelt, raw. In truth, every word was rehearsed, every angle tested, every sigh calculated. She wanted to speak directly to the world. Not through tabloids, not through intermediaries, but straight into the lens. The message was simple. She would frame herself as the misunderstood woman trying to extend kindness in a world eager to vilify her. She would shift the blame from action to perception. The trick wasn't to deny, it was to redefine. But there was a problem. Nicole Kidman still hadn't said a word. That silence gnawed at Meghan. She wanted a response, a confrontation, even because silence left her nothing to play against. You can't win a game when the other player refuses to show up. So she tried to provoke one. Behind the scenes, Meghan's PR team pitched anonymous sources to gossip outlets, hinting that Nicole had misunderstood the gesture. One article suggested Nicole's reaction was part of a larger tension among A-list women about inclusivity. Another hinted that Vogue had pressured Nicole into rejecting Meghan's gift to maintain distance. It worked for a moment. Hashtags like #MeanGirlEnergy and #SupportWomen trended briefly. Meghan's base rallied, turning the narrative into a feminist talking point. But Nicole didn't bite. No interviews, no statements, no reactions, just that calm, knowing silence. And that drove Meghan mad. You see, for Meghan, silence wasn't neutrality. It was resistance. And in her mind, resistance had to be met with escalation. That's when she decided to take Operation Royal Redemption further, beyond social media, beyond public sympathy. She wanted real power again. And to her, that meant rebuilding her network of influence, starting with the very people who had abandoned her after the Vogue fiasco. One by one, she began reaching out, old acquaintances, producers, designers, philanthropists. Some answered politely. Most didn't respond at all. But one name stood out on her contact list. A public relations powerhouse known for rehabilitating fallen stars. Fixer. Someone who could take a public disaster and turn it into a cultural reset. Meghan scheduled a private dinner. The restaurant was dimly lit, the kind of place where deals are made and secrets are traded for champagne. She arrived early, dressed in an understated cream suit. Modest, strategic, non-threatening. She needed to look humbled, not defeated. The fixer listened patiently as Meghan explained her plan. "I don't need pity," she said. "I need presence. I need people to stop seeing me as a villain." He sipped his wine, studying her. "Then you need to stop acting like one." For the first time that night, Meghan's composure faltered. "Excuse me? You can't fight perception with more performance," he said calmly. "You have to disappear long enough to make people miss you." Disappear. The very word she hated. The word she refused to live by. She smiled tightly. "That's not an option." And with that, she ended the meeting. Later that night, she sat alone in her garden, scrolling through comments online. They were brutal. Attention seeker. No self-awareness. Nicole handled it perfectly. The pain cut deep, but beneath it was something else, defiance. Because Meghan had never been the type to retreat. The next morning, she gathered her team again. "We're not waiting for forgiveness," she declared. "We're rewriting the script." They looked at her uncertainly. "How?" By doing what I do best, she said. Telling a story, my story. And just like that, she began drafting a personal essay to leak to a major magazine. It would be framed as an open reflection on celebrity culture, forgiveness, and the cruelty of the media. Every paragraph would be designed to make readers feel empathy, even admiration. But beneath the surface, the essay would do something more dangerous. It would subtly paint Nicole as cold, privileged, and unapproachable. It was a masterstroke of emotional manipulation. And Meghan knew it. Days later, her assistant Clara delivered the first draft for review. Meghan read it aloud, her tone alternating between vulnerability and quiet power. People forget that behind every photo is a human being. One who's allowed to make mistakes, one who believes in second chances. She smiled at her reflection as she read. It sounded perfect, too perfect. But as she rehearsed the lines, Clara noticed something. The more Meghan tried to sound humble, the more her voice trembled. Not with sincerity, but with pride. Because redemption wasn't what she wanted. Control was. And that's where the contradiction lay. She couldn't understand why her attempts at empathy never landed. Why people saw manipulation instead of sincerity. Why silence in others was interpreted as grace, but in her as guilt. The essay went live the following week. For 12 hours it worked. Sympathy surged. Hashtags shifted. Even a few celebrities posted vague messages about kindness and moving on. Then, out of nowhere, Nicole Kidman appeared in public again. Not for a statement, not for a comment, but for something else entirely. She attended a private gala. Radiant, calm, untouchable. And on her wrist, she wore a delicate silver bracelet shaped like a single orchid. A silent message. A symbol. A reminder. Nicole hadn't needed to speak. Her gesture said it all. I saw what you tried to do, and I'm still unbothered. The photo of that bracelet went viral within minutes. Every outlet ran with it. Nicole's orchid moment, the classiest clapback. Meghan saw it. Her phone buzzed nonstop again. This time, though, she didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just stared, breathing slowly, her face unreadable. Clara whispered, "What now?" Meghan's answer was quiet but firm. "Now," she said, "we escalate." Because Operation Royal Redemption had just turned into something far darker, something personal. And what came next would take the feud from red carpets to boardrooms, from headlines to hidden alliances. How do you destroy someone without ever lifting a finger? You don't speak. You don't explain. You simply remain still while their fury burns itself out in your shadow. That was Nicole Kidman's way. Calm, poised, and devastatingly effective. While Meghan Markle scrambled behind closed doors, plotting her royal redemption, Nicole was somewhere else entirely, far from the noise, far from the chaos, and miles above the storm. Because Nicole didn't need to fight. She knew her silence was louder than any statement. That's what makes her so dangerous in Hollywood. She doesn't play the game. She outlasts it. When the Vogue World incident broke, Nicole didn't tweet. She didn't leak. She didn't even blink. While the internet dissected her gesture, she was reportedly on a private jet back to Sydney, reclining in her seat, sipping sparkling water, scrolling briefly through headlines before turning off her phone. That was it. No damage control. No denial. No drama. And that's the thing Meghan could never understand, the quiet power of indifference. For decades, Nicole Kidman had perfected the art of balance. She didn't chase relevance. She curated it. She didn't demand the spotlight. It found her naturally, drawn by her unshakable stillness. There's a kind of royalty in that. Not the crown kind, but the earned kind, built through decades of resilience and grace. Hollywood insiders say she operates on an entirely different frequency, one that Meghan Markle never quite learned to tune into. Because Nicole's strength wasn't just in what she did. It was in what she refused to do. She refused to engage. She refused to explain herself to people who'd already made up their minds. And she refused to give her critics the satisfaction of a reaction. And yet, behind that stillness was strategy. Nicole knew exactly how to weaponize silence. Every time she ignored a headline, it made her seem more dignified. Every time she didn't respond, her fans defended her for her grace. It wasn't apathy, it was orchestration. In Hollywood, power isn't just who talks the loudest. It's who can afford to stay quiet. Let's go back for a moment, before the Orchids, before Vogue World, before the feud ever became public. There had always been tension between the two women, even if it was unspoken. Nicole represented the establishment class, artistry, the long game. Meghan represented disruption, ambition, reinvention, the short fuse. Both women had fought to be taken seriously in an industry that often reduced them to caricatures, but only one of them had mastered the balance between visibility and restraint. When Meghan married into the royal family, Nicole reportedly watched with quiet fascination. "She's talented," Nicole once said in passing to a journalist, "but the spotlight can be cruel." It was a warning disguised as empathy, and one Meghan ignored completely. Years later, those words would echo like prophecy, because the very spotlight that Meghan once used to ascend would become the same one that exposed her flaws. And while Meghan fought to stay in that light, Nicole learned how to step out of it just long enough to make her returns feel cinematic. There's a rhythm to fame: rise, fall, return. Nicole understood that. Meghan didn't. While Meghan was constantly reacting, Nicole was always anticipating. For example, the night before Vogue World, when rumors began to swirl that Meghan might make an appearance, Nicole's team received quiet word of it. According to one insider, Nicole's publicist calmly briefed her before the event. "If she sends something or tries to approach, stay calm. Let your actions speak." And that's exactly what happened. Nicole's gesture, the subtle disposal of those orchids, wasn't impulsive. It was instinctual, a performance without dialogue, a statement without words. And it worked. Within hours, the internet crowned Nicole the epitome of restraint, of boundaries, of quiet dignity. Her name trended not for scandal, but for elegance. And that, ironically, was what Meghan had always wanted: public validation without having to beg for it. But here's the irony. Nicole didn't want validation. She already had it. She had something far rarer: longevity. 3 decades in the spotlight, countless awards. One of the few women in Hollywood who could stand toe-to-toe with studio executives and never flinch. She'd survived heartbreaks, reinventions, and entire cultural shifts without losing herself in the process. That's what made her untouchable. And Meghan knew it. After the Vogue incident, Meghan's team privately hoped Nicole would issue an apology or clarification, anything to soften the blow. But Nicole never did. Instead, she booked new campaigns, attended quiet fundraisers, and went on with her life. That's when Meghan realized something horrifying. Nicole didn't even see her as a threat. To Meghan, that was the ultimate insult. Because what's worse than being hated? Being ignored. Meanwhile, Nicole's silence started to feel like a verdict. Every gossip column that speculated on tension between them made Meghan look smaller, needier, more obsessed. The more Meghan tried to explain herself, the more the world saw her as guilty. And Nicole? She didn't need to say a word. The world spoke for her. But here's where things take an unexpected turn. Nicole Kidman isn't the type to gloat, but she's not naive either. Those close to her say she's acutely aware of how perception works. She doesn't just live gracefully. She curates the illusion of grace. Every public appearance, every photo, every soundbite, all carefully calculated to reinforce the image of calm strength. Even that orchid bracelet she wore days later wasn't coincidence. It was precision, a gentle reminder of her power, a whisper that said, "I control the narrative, not you." That gesture struck Meghan deeper than any insult could, because it wasn't confrontational. It was dismissive. It turned Meghan into the noise, and Nicole into the silence that made the noise sound desperate. Now let's pull back the curtain a little more. Nicole's calm exterior hides a spine of steel. Over the years, she's fought her own wars: studio politics, typecasting, personal heartbreak. When her marriage to Tom Cruise ended under a global spotlight, she didn't lash out, didn't gossip, didn't sell her story. She just disappeared into work. She earned respect not by explaining, but by enduring. Hollywood never forgets who handles scandal with dignity. And when Meghan's drama erupted, those same power players who had once sympathized with the Duchess quietly aligned with Nicole. To them, Nicole represented control. Meghan represented chaos. And no one bets on chaos for long. At Vogue headquarters, whispers circulated that Anna Wintour had called Nicole personally to thank her for managing the situation with elegance. That call alone sent a message across the industry. Vogue had chosen its side, and Meghan was no longer on it. Nicole's silence had done what no interview or campaign could. It closed doors for Meghan. Brand deals hesitated. Invitations dried up. Even PR firms began distancing themselves from her unpredictable energy. That's the real power of reputation. Once damaged, it spreads faster than gossip. Still, Nicole wasn't vindictive. She never gloated, never fed the media machine. Her victory was in her restraint. Her revenge was peace. And yet, there was one thing Nicole didn't see coming: Meghan's refusal to quit. Because while Nicole moved forward, Meghan was plotting backward. Watching every move, every photo, every public smile, searching for a crack. She convinced herself that Nicole's silence wasn't strength, but arrogance. She's hiding something, Meghan reportedly told her team. No one is that calm unless they're afraid of something coming out. It was delusion mixed with desperation. But it planted a seed. A dangerous one. Because that idea, that Nicole Kidman might be hiding something, became the foundation of Meghan's next phase. A new PR offensive. A story built on the illusion of exposure. If Meghan couldn't beat Nicole's silence, she'd turn it against her. And that's where things would spiral completely out of control. But before the storm hit, something curious happened. Nicole was asked about Meghan during an unrelated interview. A harmless red carpet moment where a reporter casually mentioned the Duchess's name. Nicole paused, smiled that same calm smile and said, "I wish everyone peace. Truly." That's all she said. And yet, those 5 words became the most quoted sentence of the week. Because everyone heard the subtext. It wasn't peace. It was, "I've already won." Meghan watched that clip over and over again, her jaw tightening with each replay. The internet adored Nicole's restraint. Fans called her grace personified. Articles labeled her the definition of composure. For Meghan, it was unbearable. She had started this entire ordeal believing she could script her way out of any situation. But for the first time, she was watching someone else master her own game and play it better. Nicole Kidman's silent power wasn't just dominating the narrative. It was rewriting it entirely. And Meghan knew if she didn't act soon, she'd fade into irrelevance faster than the orchids that wilted in that silver bin. So she called her team one last time. "If she won't speak," Meghan said coldly, "then we'll make her." Because the next move in this quiet war wouldn't be subtle. It would be explosive. What Meghan planned to do next would drag everyone, Vogue, Hollywood, and even Nicole herself, into a spectacle no one could ignore. It began with a single flash, then another, then a storm of them, lightning without thunder, dazzling and relentless. That's how every red carpet begins. A battle of posture, poise, and perception. But this time, the battlefield wasn't about who wore what. It was about who controlled the story. And Meghan Markle was ready to reclaim it. Weeks had passed since the Vogue World fallout, and the internet had finally started to quiet down. The memes were fading. The hashtags were dying. Nicole Kidman's orchid bracelet moment had become an iconic image, a symbol of cool defiance. But Meghan wasn't done. She'd spent those quiet days not licking her wounds, but sharpening them. "Let's make them remember," she told her assistant Clara, who winced at the words. The plan was simple, or so it seemed. Meghan had been tipped off about another high-profile event, the Los Angeles Silver Screen Gala, an annual red carpet night celebrating global cinema and luxury branding. Vogue editors would be there. Nicole Kidman would be there. So would dozens of A-list celebrities, photographers, and live stream crews. In other words, the perfect stage. Except this time, Meghan wasn't going to send flowers. She was going to show up. Publicly. Boldly. Uninvited. The word gatecrash doesn't do it justice. It wasn't a reckless stunt. It was a calculated act of defiance. Meghan wanted to rewrite the narrative by creating a new headline. Markle returns, unbothered and unapologetic. The only problem? Nicole Kidman had been chosen as the honorary chair of the event, which meant that the moment Meghan stepped onto that carpet, every camera would be watching Nicole's reaction. And that was exactly what Meghan wanted. The night of the gala, the sky over Los Angeles shimmered with flashbulbs. The red carpet stretched endlessly. A river of crimson velvet bordered by paparazzi yelling names and flashing bulbs. The air smelled like perfume, champagne, and subtle rivalry. Nicole Kidman arrived early, gliding out of a sleek black sedan, wrapped in a soft ivory gown that flowed like mist. Her demeanor was as it always was, serene, untouchable, smiling politely at every question, but answering few. Cameras loved her for it. She posed, turned, and waved. It was effortless, controlled. Inside, event coordinators whispered that Meghan might appear. Nicole heard the whispers but didn't react. She simply nodded, smoothed the edge of her gown, and walked toward the entrance. Meanwhile, just blocks away, Meghan was stepping out of her own car. Unannounced, unauthorized, and absolutely determined. Her look was deliberate. Sleek, dark, understated elegance. A direct contrast to the ethereal glow of Nicole. It wasn't coincidence. It was strategy. She wanted the side-by-side photos to scream duality. Angel versus shadow. Classic versus modern. Grace versus grit. Cameras erupted the second she appeared. For a split second, everyone froze. Journalists, photographers, publicists. Was this real? Was she supposed to be there? But hesitation doesn't exist in media chaos. Within seconds, the scene exploded. Microphones extended. Voices shouted her name. Lenses pivoted toward her. Meghan! Over here. Meghan, did you and Nicole make peace? The question sliced through the air like glass. Meghan smiled, just barely. I'm here to support art and women in film, she said smoothly, her voice steady. That's all that matters tonight. She said it like she believed it, but her eyes, beneath that polished calm, were searching, hunting, waiting for the moment Nicole would appear again. And then she did. Nicole emerged from the photo line, radiant under the lights. For a moment, time slowed. Two women on the same carpet, yards apart, their entourages parting the air like invisible barriers. The crowd's energy shifted. Photographers sensed the tension and began shouting louder. Nicole! Look this way! Meghan! Over here with Nicole! Both women turned slightly, not toward each other, but toward the sound. They didn't lock eyes, not directly. But it didn't matter. The cameras captured it anyway. A perfectly timed illusion of a glance, of unspoken animosity disguised as civility. The internet would later call it the look heard round the world. But that wasn't the end. Because just as Meghan began to move forward, graceful, measured, a security guard stepped subtly into her path. His expression was professional, almost apologetic. Ms. Markle, he said quietly, this section is reserved for official attendees. The sound around them seemed to vanish. The reporters stopped mid-shout. The flashes slowed. All eyes turned to see how Meghan would react. She froze for a moment. Then she smiled that polished, camera-ready smile and said, Of course, I understand. But inside, she was burning. She turned, posing for one last photo. Chin high, shoulders straight, radiating false calm, before stepping back toward the media zone, just close enough to stay visible but far enough to remain technically outside the guest perimeter. It was a brilliant move and a humiliating one. Nicole saw it happen. Her expression didn't change, but a faint, almost imperceptible smirk crossed her lips, the kind that isn't cruel, just knowing. And the cameras caught that too. Within minutes, the images hit social media. Nicole inside the velvet ropes, Meghan just beyond them, her face illuminated by the glow of camera flashes. Caption after caption told the story without words. Grace meets defiance. Nicole inside, Meghan out. A tale of two queens. One invited, one not. Meghan's PR team scrambled to control the narrative in real time, flooding social media with talking points. Meghan attended to support women filmmakers. She was invited last minute. Security mix-up, nothing more. But the damage was already done. Because what looked like a minor logistical hiccup to the untrained eye was, in the language of Hollywood power, a public exile. And Nicole didn't need to say a thing. She simply continued her evening, effortlessly gliding past the red carpet chaos into the event hall, posing for photographers one last time before disappearing behind the glass doors. But Meghan wasn't done. She lingered outside, answering questions, smiling through gritted teeth, pretending to enjoy the moment. It was her way of reclaiming space, to show she wasn't fazed, that she could turn rejection into relevance. Except the cameras weren't focused on her anymore. They had moved on, to Nicole, to the stars inside, to the laughter echoing from the gala. And that was when it hit Meghan. The one thing worse than being mocked is being ignored. As the crowd thinned and the lights dimmed, Meghan returned to her car. She sat in silence, staring at her reflection in the tinted window. Behind her image, the faint blur of photographers still lingered, hoping for one last shot. Clara whispered, "We should go." Meghan nodded slowly, her jaw clenched. But as the car pulled away, she caught one last glimpse of the carpet. The same red path she'd once ruled with effortless grace. Now it was someone else's stage. Nicole's. Back inside the gala, Nicole gave a short speech, nothing dramatic, nothing pointed. Just a graceful toast to art, collaboration, and the beauty of knowing when to stay silent. The audience applauded, unaware that those words were daggers wrapped in lace. Out in the parking lot, Meghan's phone buzzed with hundreds of notifications. Photos, reactions, think pieces already dissecting the night. Her team texted panicked updates, trying to spin the narrative, but she didn't respond. She just stared at her phone screen, her reflection dimming as the city lights blurred past the window. Then she said quietly, almost to herself, "They'll regret underestimating me." Because in her mind, this wasn't defeat, it was ignition. Nicole had humiliated her twice now, once with flowers, once with silence. But Meghan was done playing nice. If Hollywood wanted a villain, she'd give them one. And the next move wouldn't happen on a red carpet. It would happen where power really lives, behind closed doors, where image becomes weapon and truth becomes optional. The next morning, the world woke up to a digital war zone. Photos, clips, reels, articles. Everywhere you looked, it was the same two faces. Nicole Kidman's serene smile and Meghan Markle's frozen half-grin from just outside the velvet ropes. The contrast was brutal, cinematic even. It looked like the final frame of a movie about power, exile, and the price of pride. Only this wasn't a movie. It was real. And Meghan was losing the plot. Within minutes, the internet did what it always does. It turned the night into a meme factory. Inside versus outside. Grace versus Gatecrash. The Duchess and the doorstep. The hashtags trended within hours, and the tone wasn't kind. But here's the thing about Meghan Markle. Humiliation doesn't make her retreat. It makes her reload. By sunrise, her PR team was already mobilizing. Texts fired. Phone calls flew. Clara, bleary-eyed and exhausted, was on her third cup of coffee, staring at a growing list of headlines. Meghan Markle denied entry. Nicole Kidman shades Meghan again. Vogue snubs Duchess twice. Meghan stood at the window of her Montecito home, staring at the Pacific, her reflection sharp against the morning light. "They're using me for clicks," she said quietly. "We're going to use them right back." Her plan was simple: flood the narrative. She called in her photographer friend, someone who owed her favors. "I want a photo shoot," she said. "Today. Casual. Natural. Real." Clara blinked. "Ma'am, the internet is roasting you right now. Maybe we should." No, Meghan cut her off. "If they're going to talk about me, I decide the picture they use." By noon, paparazzi stationed themselves outside her property. Meghan stepped out deliberately, holding a coffee cup, wearing jeans and a crisp white shirt, hair loosely tied. A carefully curated image of nonchalance. To the untrained eye, it was spontaneous. To her, it was chess. The cameras clicked like gunfire. She smiled slightly, tilted her head, and waved. Then she turned, as if she didn't care that every lens was trained on her. That was the illusion, control through casualness. But behind the smile was a storm. Because while Meghan staged her calm after chaos, Nicole Kidman's images from inside the gala were everywhere, posed beside Anna Wintour, laughing with Margot Robbie, accepting compliments from designers. Nicole looked effortless, radiant, unbothered. The contrast was merciless. Online debates erupted. Some defended Meghan, calling out elitist exclusion. Others praised Nicole for setting boundaries. Hashtags like #TeamNicole and #JusticeForMeghan went head-to-head, fueling the fire. And then, in the middle of all the noise, came the explosion, literally. A video. Someone, likely a paparazzo with perfect timing, had filmed the entire moment from the night before. Meghan arriving uninvited. The hesitation at the barrier. The security guard's quiet refusal. The smirk on Nicole's face. The cameras catching every flicker of discomfort. And the video went viral. Within hours, it hit 10 million views. Then 20. Every major outlet ran it. But what made the clip so powerful wasn't the visuals. It was the sound. A single voice from the crowd, captured faintly in the background. "She's not on the list." It wasn't shouted. It wasn't cruel. It was just factual. But that one line echoed across the internet like a verdict. "She's not on the list." Meghan's team panicked. She called her PR strategist at dawn. "Take it down," she demanded. "It's everywhere," he said helplessly. "We can't take it down. We can only change what people think when they see it." "How?" she snapped. "Make it look intentional. Say you went to support Nicole. Say you weren't there for yourself." The irony was cruel. The very woman who had humiliated her twice was now being recast as her alibi. Meghan hung up the call and sat in silence. "Support Nicole," she whispered. The phrase tasted bitter. Hours later, an anonymous source close to Meghan leaked a statement to a gossip site. Meghan attended briefly to show support for Nicole Kidman's charitable initiatives. There is nothing but admiration between the two women. It was a good spin. Too good. Because the internet didn't buy it. The comments were savage. "Support? You mean stalk. She can't stop chasing relevance." Nicole's living rent-free in her head. And then came the meme that broke her. A side-by-side photo. Nicole smiling under the gala lights, Meghan frozen outside. The caption read, "When you show up to a party you weren't invited to, but still try to act like it was your idea." It spread faster than wildfire. Even celebrities quietly liked it. For days, Meghan's phone didn't stop buzzing. Some messages were sympathetic. Most were not. "Are you okay?" One publicist friend texted. "I'm fine," Meghan replied. 2 words that lied. But behind the scenes, she wasn't fine. Not even close. Everywhere she looked, Nicole's name was there. Trending, glowing, untouchable. Meanwhile, every photo of Meghan became a punchline. Even reputable outlets had begun referring to her as the Duchess of Drama. It was more than mockery. It was exile. And that's when something inside Meghan snapped. She decided that if the world was going to treat her like a villain, she'd take control of the narrative. She'd own it. She'd make it bigger, darker, and impossible to ignore. She called her assistant. "Get me a list of photographers who were at that event." Clara hesitated. "For what?" Meghan's eyes flashed. "We're gonna find out who leaked that video. And when we do, they'll regret it." But the truth was more complicated. The video wasn't leaked maliciously. It was just business. A paparazzo caught a viral moment, sold it to the highest bidder, and the world devoured it. But Meghan didn't see it that way. To her, it was sabotage. And when Meghan feels betrayed, she doesn't forgive. She started calling contacts, demanding names, threatening legal action. even sending cease and desist letters to entertainment blogs that reused the footage. The problem? Each move only made things worse. The more she fought, the more headlines it created. Meghan Markle threatens paparazzi over viral video. Duchess furious after being snubbed twice. Sources say Meghan is losing control. Her silence would have killed the story, but her reaction revived it. And while Meghan spiraled, Nicole thrived. She appeared on a morning show, smiling graciously, discussing an upcoming film. The host lightly joked, "You've been trending a lot lately." Nicole laughed softly. "Oh, I don't pay attention to that sort of thing." It was the perfect answer. Elegant dismissal, no denial, no bitterness. And everyone believed her. The interview went viral, of course. By the end of the week, the power dynamic was clear. Nicole had won the public without trying. Meghan had lost them by trying too hard. But something was shifting beneath the surface. A quiet tension that even Nicole didn't anticipate, because the paparazzi weren't done. They'd caught more than just the viral clip. Hidden in their archives were hundreds of photos, unedited, unpublished, showing details no one had noticed yet. Meghan's assistant arguing with event staff. A bouquet of orchids left on a security table. A discarded name tag. And one image in particular, Meghan standing outside the venue, holding her phone, her face illuminated by the screen, captured mid-expression. Not anger. Not sadness. Something else. Determination. When those photos leaked days later, they reignited the storm. But this time, it wasn't pity or mockery fueling it. It was curiosity. What is she planning? People began to ask. Because the look in her eyes said it all. Meghan wasn't done. The world thought it had seen the worst of her fury. It hadn't. Because the next phase wouldn't be about flowers or fences or red carpets. It would be about exposure. Meghan was about to strike where it hurt, the image of perfection Nicole Kidman had built so carefully over decades. The cameras that once humiliated her would soon become her weapons. And the headlines that mocked her would become her stage. But what she didn't know, what no one knew, was that someone else had been watching her every move, quietly documenting the chaos she thought she controlled. And that person would become the key to everything that followed. The door slammed so hard that the chandelier above the Montecito foyer trembled. A single orchid petal, one of the few Meghan had kept from her ill-fated peace offering, fluttered to the marble floor and lay there lifeless. That night, there were no cameras, no filters, no followers. Just raw fury echoing through the walls of a $14 million mansion that suddenly felt far too small for the storm inside it. Meghan Markle had officially lost control. Her phone screen was still glowing on the kitchen island. Muted notifications piling up faster than she could swipe them away. The viral clip from the silver screen gala played on repeat across every platform. No matter how many times she tried to delete, refresh, or distract herself, her own face kept appearing. Frozen outside the velvet ropes while Nicole Kidman smiled inside. That single image had become her prison. "How dare they?" she muttered under her breath, pacing. "How dare she?" Clara, her exhausted assistant, stood awkwardly in the doorway, clutching a tablet full of analytics. "Ma'am." The clips hit 36 million views. Meghan stopped mid-step. 36. Clara nodded, voice small. "And counting." Meghan's laugh was sharp, humorless. "So that's it then. 36 million people watching me being humiliated. Again." She turned toward the window, the Pacific glimmering cold and indifferent beyond the glass. All because of her. Nicole Kidman. To the world, Nicole was elegance personified. But to Meghan, she had become an obsession. Every new photo, every interview, every subtle smile on Nicole's face felt like a personal attack. A reminder of how perfectly composed someone could be while the world turned her downfall into entertainment. "She knew exactly what she was doing," Meghan hissed. "That look. She knew the cameras were watching." "Maybe it wasn't about you," Clara ventured carefully. Meghan spun around. "Everything is about me, Clara. That's how this world works." The words hung in the air, heavy and revealing. Clara lowered her eyes. "People are saying maybe we should wait it out. Let it fade. If we react too much, Meghan cut her off with a raised hand. Waiting is surrender. And I don't surrender. She walked over to the counter, snatched up her phone, and began scrolling through messages. Text chains with her PR advisor, her stylist, her brand consultant. Each one read the same, "We need to talk. This is bad. Let's strategize before making moves." Strategize. That word made her skin crawl. She didn't want strategy. She wanted vengeance. The longer she scrolled, the more her fury transformed into something colder, something calculated. "Find out who leaked the security footage," she said suddenly. Clara blinked. "We already tried. It's impossible to trace." "Then make it possible." "But ma'am, it's owned by the event organizers." "It wasn't." "I don't care who owns it," Meghan shouted. "Someone let that video go public, and they're going to regret it." Clara flinched but said nothing. She had seen this side before, the one Meghan never showed the cameras. The side where every smile turned to steel, every hurt became ammunition. Meghan pressed her palms flat against the marble countertop, breathing hard. Then, softer now, "She thinks she's untouchable. Nicole Kidman. Perfect Nicole. Everyone worships her. But no one's perfect, Clara. No one." Her voice dropped lower, almost a whisper. "We just have to find her cracks." And that's when it happened, the shift. The moment fury became focus. Because Meghan realized something that night. If she couldn't control her own narrative, she could at least ruin someone else's. By morning, her anger had crystallized into action. She called her PR strategist Andrew, a man who had seen enough Hollywood meltdowns to recognize when one was about to become legendary. "Morning, Meghan," he said cautiously. "I want a new strategy," she said without greeting. "Not damage control. Offense." There was a pause. "You want to go after Nicole Kidman?" Meghan smiled thinly. "No. I want to show the world who she really is." Andrew exhaled. "Look, you need to understand something. Nicole's bulletproof. Her reputation's 30 years deep. You go at her directly, you'll look desperate." "I already look desperate," she snapped. "So I might as well win while I'm at it." He hesitated. "What exactly do you have in mind?" She leaned closer to the phone. "You'll see soon enough." And just like that, she hung up. By noon, Meghan was on a mission. She began reaching out to old acquaintances, assistants, stylists, publicists who had once brushed shoulders with Nicole Kidman. Some ignored her calls. Others answered cautiously. A few, sensing opportunity, listened. Every conversation began the same way. "Off the record," Meghan would say. "You've worked with her. What's she really like?" Most responded politely, evasively. "She's professional. She's focused. She's private." But one person, a former makeup artist who'd once done touch-ups for a Vogue shoot, gave her what she wanted, gossip. "Nicole's nice in public," the woman whispered. "But on set, she can be cold, demanding, like scary perfect. Everyone walks on eggshells around her." Meghan's eyes gleamed. "Scary perfect," she repeated, savoring the phrase. By the end of the day, she had enough fragments to build a story, an unflattering portrait of Nicole as controlling, icy, impossible to please. It wasn't proof. It wasn't truth. But it was something she could feed to the media. And that's exactly what she did. 2 days later, a gossip outlet published an anonymous exposé titled, "The Real Nicole, Hollywood's Ice Queen?" It quoted unnamed insiders describing her as intimidating and secretive. The article didn't mention Meghan directly, but the timing was unmistakable. Nicole Kidman, of course, didn't respond. Her silence was once again louder than Meghan's outrage. But inside Vogue's Manhattan headquarters, the story caused quiet concern. Some editors wondered privately if Meghan was behind it. Others dismissed the idea. "She wouldn't dare," one said. "Not again." They were wrong, because Meghan wasn't just daring. She was escalating. That evening, she stormed into her home office, slamming the door behind her. Clara followed cautiously, holding a folder full of social media analytics. "The article's traction is high," Clara reported nervously. "But people are defending Nicole." They're saying it's baseless gossip. Meghan scoffed. Of course they are. They worship her. But give it time. Seeds take a while to grow. She began pacing again, faster now, muttering half-thoughts to herself. She made me the villain. I'll make her the fraud. People love to watch idols fall. It's only fair. Clara hesitated. Ma'am, are you sure this is the right move? Meghan turned sharply. Right move? The right move was years ago when I trusted the wrong people. This... She gestured wildly at her laptop screen. This is survival. Her phone buzzed. It was Andrew again. Meghan, I'm hearing from journalists that you're feeding stories, he said bluntly. That's not how redemption works. Then maybe I'm not after redemption anymore, she said coldly. There was a long silence on the line before he sighed. Be careful, because once you go down this road, there's no turning back. She ended the call without responding. Outside, the California sun was setting, soft golden light spilling through the glass walls. But inside, the mood was anything but warm. Meghan sat at her desk, scrolling through the article again, rereading every line. Her reflection on the laptop screen merged with Nicole's photo from the gala. 2 women, 2 faces, 1 silent war. You wanted silence, Meghan whispered. I'll give you no...